Wow, hey everybody, Dylan here, and boy howdy, wasn't that freaking Elimination Chamber impactful. I have such mixed feelings on this Elimination Chamber, but we're just gonna get right into business real quick, okay. So, it starts off with shots of Ontario, Canada, which is where we are at. Specifically, the Sky Dome. Yeah, that's right. It's not called anything else. It's called the Sky Dome. Yeah, that's right. And they start off the show with like everybody arriving to the arena. After everybody arrives and they kind of like list off like this person's going against this person. Oh, here's the chamber participants and give off their stories. We get the promo package beforehand with the hype man that's like, and now WWE proudly presents blah blah blah. And then after that, we get Pyros. And I wrote from the beginning, I said, you know that this is going to be the best PLE ever existed. That is always their secret. When they have those three back to back to back, you know it's going to be a banger. Michael Cole is the main man on commentary, and there's also Wade Barrett and Pat McAfee there. I think they technically do color, but I don't know. Whatever they normally do, they're doing their job. After that, the first match to start us off is the Women's Elimination Chamber match. They hype it up by as the chambers drop and there's like fog coming up, and they kind of I don't even know if you'd say explain the story, but they kind of like give some more details into the stories, and they have like a little hype package for the chamber itself. It's pretty hyped. So the order that the participants come out, which doesn't matter because they come out in random order, but I wrote this down so I'm going to use my notes, is Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, Bailey, which Roxanne, they have a shot of Roxanne reacting to, which was kind of cool. And then Bianca, then Liv, and Naomi. Liv and Naomi are the two started off. Before the match even properly begins, Jade comes out, and for some reason they just let her walk up the ramp and go into the chamber, but she pretends like she's gonna punch Liv and then swerves it into punching the shit out of Naomi, which gets a big pop from the crowd. Hell yeah. And I'm happy because I knew it. I don't know if I've had an official video. I forget what I've said on video and what's been said in like my personal life, but I called that shit from day one. I'm so happy I got that right. Oh my god. Just a little heads up. You're going to hear that theme about 2 to 3 more times throughout the night. And it's very rewarding from WWE when you can kind of see where a story's going from, just from a wrestling standpoint, and then they actually pay it off how it's supposed to. You know, we've had, this is just my overall, like, a general synopsis, I guess is the way to say it, so I don't have to say it later, but we have had years of, like, WWE being like, oh, this is how it traditionally goes, but boom, here's a swerve for you, and it's just not rewarding. So, thankfully, whether it's just one night or whatever, we get all of the story payoffs tonight, if you will. We get them paying off how we would expect it, except for one. Okay, I'm gonna quit stalling now. I'm sorry. Alright, so Naomi tried to like crawl out of the chamber after that punch, but nope, that doesn't work. Jade slams her onto the floor, and then Jade ends up literally taking the door and slams that door onto her. I'm so glad that worked and there wasn't a botch there, because that could have hurt somebody for realsies. The whole time that this is going down, Bianca does a great sell job. Like, she's freaking out. You can hear her over everybody, like, screaming her lungs out about it, and looking like she's crying because her former tag team champion partner and her current partner are fighting now, and she's just so confused about it. Naomi gets stretchered out as the crowd chants the na-na-na-na, hey, goodbye song, and Liv is rubbing it in Bianca's face through the chamber pod as announcer says that she has been officially eliminated. This gives Liv Morgan a pass for a little bit. Up next is Bianca, who goes over for some reason to check on Naomi at the entranceway instead of focusing on the match. So she ends up having to pay for that. She gets attacked by Liv and then thrown into every pod around the arena. They take turns beating the shit out of each other for a little bit, and I think there's a couple spots where you could hear them audibly call their spots too. It kind of made me go, ooh. Yeah, so shout out the correct name, the Rogers Center crowd. They are so crazy tonight. As everybody knows probably by now, They ended up booing the Star Spangled Banner at the beginning, so that just tells you what type of a hyped up crowd we got for this show. Next up was Roxanne Perez, who just starts beating the shit out of everyone. She has a little showcase shine spot until they all beat the shit out of each other. That's right, they continue doing that until Bayley comes out next. Her and Perez use the surroundings to beat up each other where they're in a little rivalry right now. And one thing I just appreciate is that there wasn't that many pinfall attempts during this match. It was just, let's beat the crap out of each other and then go for the pin for the big moments. I appreciate that. So the thing that surprised me was, shockingly, Bayley was the first elimination after Liv hit an Oblivion on her. I mean, it makes sense from a story standpoint because Liv is like this on fire heel right now. But from the standpoint that they were building, where it's like Bayley's like, "Hey, I'm gonna challenge you, Rhea," that surprised me. After that, Liv tries to climb the pod. Once she realizes Bianca's after her, she just climbs up there to try to escape her. They have a good old battle on top of the pod until Bianca throws her off and then jumps on the floor with everybody. There's a cool spot beforehand where you can see her like whipping her hair around, like hyping her up, be like, "Yeah, I just did that." After that, some action happens where Roxanne ends up taking everybody's finish and then she gets eliminated. So my two choices for the final are out already, so that threw me for a surprise. But honestly, the way that the story has been going, I could see what ends up happening as plan B, except for who wins, but we'll get into that. Some action happens later, and then Roxanne, like I said, takes everybody's finish. She gets eliminated on that. Alexa Bliss hits a sister Abigail and then gets rolled up by Liv Morgan, which that surprised me that she got eliminated just with a roll up. So that brought it down to between Liv and B, where after they trade finishers and SIGs for a bit, Bianca ends up winning with the KOD. So this could have went one of like 6 ways, obviously. I think this is the biggest surprise, so I'm not upset. I'm just surprised because she goes from being a tag team champion to like being a fresh face again in the main event picture, kind of. I appreciate that theoretically if she wins the title off of Rhea, it could give a new twist to this whole Naomi, Jade, and her triangle story. That'd be kind of sick. All I know is, Naomi, you're going to get your ass kicked eventually, even worse than this. As she's celebrating up the ramp, Rhea ends up coming out and they have a little stare down until Io Sky comes out to remind everybody that Monday, aka tonight, that she has a title match. After a bunch of ads and promotions that took up like 30 minutes, we get Nia and Candice versus Trish and Tiffany. And I'm sorry, I know these other ones have like a lot of notes compared to this, but this one I wasn't that super excited for. It was a stellar match, but Team Mom and Daughter, as I'm now referring to them as, wins when Tiffany ends up hitting the prettiest moonsault ever. I forget on whom. After, again, way too many promotional materials plugged, we get a Rock hype package for the main event where Cody's going to either sell his soul or something else happens. And after some more of that type of jazz, we get Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayne in a unsanctioned match. Let me just tell you, me personally, I like the concept of an unsanctioned match. I think they're a weird modern way to say a no disqualification match or a hardcore match or whatever you'd have. But just something off the bat that kind of felt weird is the fact that there was... So for this match that WWE does not approve, there was an official time slot for it, and there was an announcer announcing the rules for this match that doesn't have rules. It is so wrestling logic that it hurts if you overthink it. However, this match, as I predicted, was so enjoyable. I loved it. Everything about it was beautiful. Some of the spots I wrote down was that Kevin, towards the midpoint of the match, ends up shoving Sami off the top rope out into the ring. Out of the ring, and he shoves him onto like a set of tables. That was sick. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought Kevin was taking that spot. But Sami, honestly, is the MVP of this match. Also, Kevin ends up dropping him neck first onto a set of chairs. I forgot all about that and just relived that. Gosh, that was crazy. as the action continues somewhere throughout it, Kevin ends up pulling one of the refs in the way of a haluva kick, and then Charles Robinson runs down to try to like count the pinfall. He ends up counting a 2. That pisses off Kevin, so he ends up punching him out. As after that, the third and final official ends up running into the ring. More action happens, more sequences, and then Sami gets put through a table after a fisherman suplex off the top turnbuckle. Technically inverted fisherman suplex, but whatever. It gets to the point where it gets ugly throughout the match. Producers try to come out and try to tell like Kevin to end it, but Kevin continues the onslaught by just beating the shit out of Sami some more. Eventually the match goes into Sami's favor, and he ends up pulling out a chair from under the ring that is wrapped in barbed wire, and holy shit, but even though it's wrapped in like gimmick shoot barbed wire, aka not the prop stuff that movie people use, but like the barbed wire that's been snipped and twisted, it is fucking crazy seeing barbed wire in a wrestling match. That is one of the few things that can still pop me in a match, because we're so like desensitized to like headshots and stuff like that from the past, that even when they do it nowadays, in the very rare 1 in a billion chance they do, I'm like, it makes me cringe more than anything. But when I see barbed wire, I'm like, holy fuck, somebody's gonna get for shootsies fucked up. And I enjoy that because I am a twisted and warped wrestling fan. Shout out to freaking Kevin Owens, by the way. He took it like 2-3 times in the back, and then freaking Kevin ends up taking a face buster onto the chair because Sami sets it up like if you just were to sit in it, and then sweeps the leg, and Kevin's face goes right into it. Ugh. That sucked. And speaking of all the suckiness, he sets up a chair sandwich, as I'm going to call it. It's like where 2 chairs that are in the seated position are to the left and the right, and then in the middle of it, they set up a chair on it. He did that, but the chair in the middle was a chair with the barbed wire, and he gave Kevin Owens a blue thunder bomb onto that. That shit had to suck. Throughout the match, Kevin ends up taking advantage of Sami, I forget how, and it ends up wrapping Sami's head around a chair, and he drives it twice into ring post. Somehow that only got him like a 2 count. It got to the point where they just kept on doing so much like destructive creative bullshit that I was eventually just like, come on, just let there be a winner at this point, damn it. He also powerbombed him onto the apron once, and producers came down and tried to like stop him from doing it anymore and just told him to end it. But then they tried it again. He messed it up, so Sami, to save it, kind of like punched him, which wouldn't make sense because if you had just had your throat like broken, you wouldn't be conscious. But whatever. He ends up doing it again after that, and then he pins him. Kevin does, for the win. Kevin goes to leave the ring as security surrounds him, but then he runs back to the ring. He exposes the concrete floor, which popped me. I was like, ooh, yay, a pile driver onto concrete. And he pulls Sami Zayn out. He tries to pile driver him, but as he's going to pile driver him, I got another prediction right. Randy Orton's music hits, and that's the return of the Viper. It's finally back after Kevin's freaking kayfabe broke his neck a while ago, and they get into a brawl. It's one of these weird wrestling things, right? Because Kevin has him like ready for a pile driver, and literally the music hits, he drops him. I don't know why he didn't just spike him and then go after Orton, but you know what? It's wrestling logic. So anyway, after they brawl for a little bit, Orton gets the best of him, picks up a chair to hit him while he's on the ground, and then he freezes. As soon as he freezes, there was a thought in my head that said, that'd be crazy if he punt kicked him. He is in the corner and the camera's on the right spot for it, but they can't punt kick anymore. But also, what if? What if he did? Wait, Orton, why are you like standing still right now? Oh, you got that look in your eye. And then he does the fucking mouth thing that old Psycho Orton used to do, the little thing where his like bottom lip curves in and his outer lip curves out. You don't see teeth, you just see like the look of a man possessed by the devil himself staring at you, and you said, oh shit. And then he goes into the corner and you think that he's about to kick his head off. You're so close to seeing it, but agents halfway through his run end up tackling him to the ground, and Owens ends up rolling out of the ring. Orton in revenge ends up RKO and all the remaining security guards that kind of like held him back, and then poses as we end that segment. 10 out of 10. I got my freaking prediction right. I love this pay-per-view. At that point, I said I love this pay-per-view so far. No matter what happens in the main event, as long as the Paul brother doesn't win, I'm a happy camper. I can't really argue at this point. So, boy howdy, we get something crazy. Before we get there, I just want to think out loud real quick. I don't know if I said it on here, but I said something about the Orton returning at least, and I think I mentioned it in my inner circle. I don't know if I mentioned it to you all or not, but I mentioned that once he returns, it'd be so sick if he did the punt kick. So I almost got what I wished for and almost predicted this show, so I'm happy. Alright, after a shit ton of ads, the only letdown of this whole thing is how many fucking ads there was. After a bunch of those and plugs for coming up shows and future shows and shows next year, we get the men's, I wrote down the men's Rumble, that stumped me, the men's Elimination Chamber, where the Paul brother is the first to enter. Then Priest, Punk, Cena, Drew, and Seth are the two who started off. Everybody else stayed in the cage. Or their cages. They start off the match in an explosive way. They have good back and forth for a bit. It really makes up... It's really a different way than the women's match. So I appreciate the change of pace, even though you're seeing the same thing essentially back to back, start to finish. So I appreciate that. After a little bit, the timer goes off, and Priest is next, who ends up clearing the ring. After that, the Paul brother comes out, and I don't care who's next. That's right, Cena's next, and he comes in as a house of fire where he takes everybody out, gives out AAs until Drew ends up kicking him with the Claymore kick. Drew immediately gets rolled up by Priest, and Drew gives him a Claymore kick and then leaves. Paul brother does something. I think he did like a frog splash or something. I don't care about him. Unfortunately, when he jumped off the top, he didn't end up breaking his neck, so boo. He ends up hitting Priest with the frog splash and eliminates him. Punk is seething, just like begging to enter this match as soon as possible. As soon as he does, I think he says, something to the extent of, we know I'm the only one left, open the fucking pod or something like that. But as soon as he opens the pod, he goes right after the Paul brother and suplexes him outside. After Punk comes out, there's some cool like teases and callbacks that happen, like Cena go out and after Seth and CM Punk. It kind of made me happy. They kept on teasing the whole Cena and Punk going after each other thing. Made me smile a little bit. And every time I was like, but we're just like that much closer for me getting nostalgia. Thankfully, there was one thought in the back of my head this whole time. I was like, oh no, everybody's going to eliminate everybody and the Paul brothers going to win. However, thankfully, Punk is the one to eliminate him. That makes me happy. So at this point I wrote down, I don't care whoever wins, I'm happy. Punk, Seth, and Cena then have a little stare down because they're the only three that are left. In a move I never thought I'd see, Punk and Cena end up hitting the heart attack on Rollins. I get it, they're in Canada, what have you, but I never thought that sentence would be issued out of my mouth. I'm glad it is, however. After Seth got taken out. After Seth is outside for a little bit, we get to relive a little bit of nostalgia for Dylan, which made me smile. We got to see Cena and Punk go at it again, and honestly, my teenage heart needed to see that. I appreciate that. You rolled back time for me, guys, so thank you. Not many things in life can still do that, so I appreciate that. They had a beautiful 10-15 minutes where they just did their thing. And right before it happens, you can see Cena say, I missed you. And Punk says, I missed you too, or something like that. It freaking broke my heart. Rollins ends up throwing Cena through a pod. Then we get a Rollins and Punk thing. After Cena returns, Rollins ends up eating a GTS after he counters a AA. And then he goes, after he eats the knee, he turns around and ends up taking an AA from Cena. Cena passes out, or Seth ends up shoving him as he's going down or something. But Punk ends up rolling up and covering Rollins to eliminate him. John and Punk go back and forth for a bit until I think what happens is like Punk goes towards the ropes to try to get up, but Seth ends up curb stomping Punk's head onto the like chamber grate floor, and Cena ends up making him pass out with a modified STFU. So okay, so hear me out. I know we call it like the STF now, but the STF is when he takes it and he hooks them between his biceps, but you can clearly tell there's that V where they can breathe. The STFU is when he literally takes his full arm and puts him in a headlock and like pulls his arm, and his big ass muscle makes him pass out. So that was STFU. You could hear as he's applying it, you could hear him say, "I'm sorry," because he knew what he had to do. And the whole time before anything happens, you could hear freaking Seth the whole time just yelling, "Die, die, die!" Which either he's a really big fan of Reaper, shout out to OG Overwatch, or that means that that's going to set up their Mania program. I can't wait to. I haven't watched Raw yet, and I so can't freaking wait to. As Cena's in the middle of the ring saying, "Yeah, I did it, woo!" and he's celebrating and whatnot, Cody's music hits, and he ends up coming out as he's celebrating. They have a little stare down for a second, and Cena shows him respect by, when he gets in the ring, he ends up like holding the ropes down for him like they used to do for Nature Boy back in the day. They shake hands in the middle of the ring, then The Rock's music hits, and for some reason Travis Scott is the one that ends up coming out first. Like, you think it's going to be Dwayne Johnson, but then fucking you see Travis Scott there, and he ends up coming into the ring for some reason, and honestly runs this whole segment. Alright, just kidding, by the way. The Rock and Cody talk for a little bit. The Rock ends up telling him that he will embrace him, and if the answer is yes, that he will make him immortal. But if the answer is no, then tonight the dream dies. Again. Cody says that he wants it all, and that his soul no longer belongs to him, because he gave his soul to the ring and to the people a long time ago. And then something that made me pop, he ends up telling The Rock to go fuck himself, and I lost it at that point. Even Cena did. You can see him in the background doing like the big like muscle thing when he ends up celebrating. He's like, "Yeah, I won," like the big arm toss. After that, Cena daps him up. They hug, and last thing Cody saw from him was a big old smile. And that's the last image we see. Nothing else happens. You know, the show's over at that point. Now, just kidding. In beautiful freaking cinematography work, he goes from smiling him to a solid face to The Rock. And you see The Rock do the throat slit and pulls up, not across his throat for some reason. He ends up pulling it up his cheek. And this time, instead of having a 3, he has a 2 up. And then after they embrace for a little bit, Cena kicks him right in the balls. We finally get Cena heel turn. Listen, I know I sound like a massive mark right now, but you know how many years I've been waiting for this? And I'm not the only one judged by that crowd's reaction, because the crowd immediately went, "Oh, and then started booing him in character. It was so cathartic. It was so cathartic to see. Unfortunately for Cody, they ended up like taking his shirt off, beating the shit out of him with a Rolex. He just freaking Cena ties it around his fist and just bam, bam, bam. He ends up making him a bloody mess, which I think is fake blood, judging by the fact that it didn't look like he gig skied. But as he's on the ground, Cena takes the tie and chokes him out with it, Daniel Bryan style. And for some reason, I mean, Rock's broken the news on it, but for some fucking reason, Travis Scott just walks up to Cody and just goes, BAM! Like his right across the fucking face. You know that had to be a rib, because The Rock said if you're going to get involved, make sure to like get involved as hard as possible. You know that had to be a rib from The Rock. As Cody is shirtless in the floor, this sounds kind of kinky out of context, but you hopefully you hear what I'm saying, and you hopefully know what I mean. But as he is laying there, bloody mess and all, The Rock ends up whipping him with the weight belt multiple times. He takes his blood, rubs it all over the belt, and then throws the title at him. As the last shot we see is Cena walking out with the rest of the corporate crew, and Cody is in the middle of the ring, broken man, broken dreams, realizing he's not fighting against regular happy, oh, I'm glad to be there, Cena. No, he's fighting against corporate Cena now. You know, honestly, I know everybody's like meat riding it just because of this main event, but name like 10 shows off the top of your head that you're like, oh, that's the greatest WWE event of all time. And tell me how many of those were the greatest event of all time because everything was cathartic, not just one event. Honestly, if I did my star rating still, this would be like a freaking 6-star rating. This would break my star rating. I loved this whole show through and through. Even the like match that was kind of like, it was alright. It wasn't a bad match. This is getting me excited to watch Raw tonight. I've seen very limited spoilers on it. It is happening while I'm recording this, and I hope to God it's not a mid-show. Anyway, I got last week's Raw, this week's Raw, and this to post, so I'll see you for one of these 3 videos. I'll see you down the line. Alright.